Good morning, you guys. Hey, we're back at the fish hatchery again. And last time I was telling you about the two types of fish hatcheries, and I got so involved with this hatchery, I forgot to tell you about non-kill hatcheries. Alaska, especially for the salmon, most of the hatcheries are kill hatcheries, but there's other types of hatcheries, you guys. One thing when I was guiding that was so important to me is that guides and outfitters, where they take from the resource with their guiding and taking people fishing and hunting, it's very important to give back to the resource. And so one thing I did religiously was I always donated my time to the fish hatcheries or the wildlife resources or anything that I could. And so I learned a lot, and I actually worked for the Fish and Wildlife in some of their hatcheries. A lot of it was donated time. But anyway, let's go over here. I'll show you these fish runs again. The non-kill hatcheries, what happens, you guys, is these fish will come up just like the fish I just showed you. And then we will take the fish and we'll separate them into male and female pens. And then we use a chemical. It's actually anesthesia, and I believe, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's called MS-222. And basically what that does is the fish will come up and we will net them, and then we put them in these great big bins full of water. And you'd put this MS solution in there, not too much of it, and it would actually knock the fish out, kind of like when you go to the dentist or you go to the doctor, you have a surgery, and they bonk you out. And so that's basically what you would do with the fish. And then very carefully you'd take these fish and you hold them kind of like you'd hold an infant, and you put the head kind of up in the crotch of underneath your arm or by your elbow, and then you gently squeeze the eggs out with your thumb. And we'd squeeze them into a net first, a small seining net, something like a cheese net or something you'd seine something in the kitchen, a real fine net, and get all the solution and all the blood or whatever comes out with the eggs. You get that off of the fish, and then you take them and put them in a bucket, and we would do 5 fish at a time. And then you take the male and take the milk from the male and do the same thing. And then a lot of times for study or research, we would take the ovarian fluid out of the females to do some study and some biological information for the fisheries biologists. And so it was kind of a neat process. And then the crazy thing is you'd take these fish that look like they're dead, and then you would put them back in the fresh water, and in about 5-10 minutes, boom, they'd just wake right up and they'd come right back to life, and then off they'd swim. And one thing about when you take eggs from fish, you have to get all the eggs out of these fish. If you don't, and the fish regains its consciousness, and then you put it back down in the river or lake or wherever it is, that fish will turn right back around and come right back up, because its instinct says it still has eggs to lay. And so it's really amazing. Fun story for you guys. When I was guiding, I worked for the Fish and Game one day prior to it, and I tagged this great big cutthroat trout in Bear Lake, Utah, and I had a guided trip going out the next day. And what we would do is we used to use water spots on fish, and then you'd have to put the fish under ultraviolet light so you could see the water spot, and that would tell you that it was a fish that we had handled before, and then we could pull up the data on the fish. But then Fish and Game turned to actual tags, and the tags would go right above the top fin, this fin right there on the fish. And then there's little numbers on there, so when the fish are caught, you'd have all the data of who caught the fish, who tagged the fish, who spawned the fish, how old the fish was, what sex the fish was. So it was interesting. So back to my story, I had a guided trip go out the day after we had tagged some fish. So I had tagged this big cutthroat trout, and Bear Lake, Utah is a pretty big lake, and so I was all the way across into the north of the fish hatchery, probably about 11-12 miles away, and we caught the exact same fish that I had handled the day before and tagged. And so that gives you an idea of how far some of these fish can travel. And I know these salmon and steelhead can travel, some of them over 1,000 miles to where their spawning grounds are, but these fish, to travel 11 miles is just like a stroll in the park for them. So it's amazing how far these fish can go. Anyway, I just wanted to share these fish with you just in the week that since I did this last video. These fish have sure matured. You can see how dark the spots are on them now, and the lines on them. And this fish hatchery right now, they're up spawning these. They still have a few king salmon, but look how they've changed. And it's amazing how grotesque their mouths and their teeth get. There's a great big bruiser right there. Let's see if we can see his teeth. And it's amazing. Soon these fish will die naturally, so it's a good thing that the Fish and Wildlife's taking their eggs out of them right now while they still have viable eggs and sperm. Anyway, wanted to share a beautiful thing and a little story with you guys, and a little bit more about kill hatcheries and non-kill hatcheries. And you see a lot of non-kill hatcheries, but when you're dealing with a fish that's going to die anyway, then most of your hatcheries really are just after the eggs. So anyway, a little info for you guys about tagging and tracking and tracing and trying to help out the resource for the fisheries for all of us. You guys have an awesome day. Send you a great big huge smile from the fish runs here in Juneau, Alaska. All right, we'll see you guys. Okay, bye.